You hiding? You hiding from the camera?
No, I was turning off the light. It gives me like a halo effect, and I definitely don't want that.
Like Goku when he's dead?
Yes, just like that.
Oh,
Uh,
well, good to see you. It was like we were in Oslo
it's been a
together,
couple
but
days.
I barely saw you. The first day you were just sleeping on the
No, you
couch.
saw a lot of me. You did. Yeah, you saw a lot of me. We didn't talk much.
No, it
I
was
mean, you set up a really great area for me to catch up on sleep, and it was great. That was very considerate of you.
yeah, it was there were a lot of things about the way that they did the broadcast at Oslo Throwdown this year that I think are like massive learning opportunities for other competitions and people who maybe want to do broadcasts. But it because of the way we were doing it, it occupied basically my entire day every day or both days.
Yeah, pretty much. I felt
Which
like you had
is
more
which is
time. I felt like you had more time on day one than you did day two.
yeah, maybe. I was trying to think if I mean they because they have those divisions that it's like some of the divisions only compete on Saturday, some only compete on Sunday, and then there's obviously the ones that compete both days. And on the second day, therefore the entire division or the divisions that are competing their entire competition on that day, and the divisions that are competing over 2 days are all finishing. So there's kind of more going on, especially later into the evening, I think. Um,
Mhm.
and we also like we did a I feel like we did more interviews and used kind of that studio setup that they had for on day two, especially kind of because the teenagers were competing, and
Yeah,
um per the regulations we can't do the close-ups of them, so we were just still wanting, still on air and wanted to take that time to have some conversations. So maybe those things.
yeah. But nevertheless, I had a great time. I know it was a little bit different than I was used to. I felt like I don't know. I felt like I was doing more like talking with people, networking, just getting a general feel of everything that I normally do, whether it's like helping you out or capturing content. I think I only got like a couple pictures of a few of the divisions, and that's it. Um, it's good to have Marius there, who I knew was covering all that, so I can always lean on to him. But it felt good. Besides that, like 30 minutes of nap time I got, I was out on Vendor Village talking to people, talking to brands, talking to fans, talking to athletes. Um, and I think you asked me at one point, it's like, "Hey, are you getting interviews with athletes?" And I got a few, but I felt like, I don't know, I just didn't feel like I wanted to really talk to them with a camera. Like, I think probably the best conversation I had all weekend was after you had Dan and Sapphire on, for one of your shows. And then we sat there for a while, me, Dan, and Sapphire, and we talked for maybe like 30 minutes. And it was just really cool just talking to them about like, and we didn't really talk that much about CrossFit. We talked about more like the business side and what to do, when you're, like investing in the future. Like they have it figured out, in my opinion. You know, I don't know if they showed you, but they have this beautiful house just on this lock in the middle and down in Scotland, and it's like, they own a gym, and then they're traveling. It's just like yeah, and but they, I was like, they have it figured out, but they'll be like, no, we don't have it figured out, but you know, but we're always trying to figure it out. I don't know, just those type of conversations. I'm glad I didn't get on camera. Of course, here I am talking about it, but there's like details in there I would never like, you know, talk about. But you know,
No, I think it's a great thing to mention. Actually, I often tell people who don't have like they'll be like, man, you know all the athletes, and I'll tell them that it's like athletes in or even people in one of three ways.
yeah,
It's either that like you know of them and they know of you, that's knowing them, or it might be
hmm,
that you do some kind of an interview with them, so you get to know them a little bit more. And then and each one of these is a smaller group, right? And then the
yeah,
smallest group is that you get to spend time with them that has nothing to do with competition or CrossFit. Like we were talking about with Dan and Sapphire, where yes, you were at a CrossFit competition, but you were just talking as people. And so,
Yeah.
and now there's like a personal or a human connection that supersedes an interview, that supersedes hey, I know who you are, you know who I are, acknowledgement sort of relationship. And obviously, those deeper relationships are more difficult to get uh, because they take more time. And you have to put yourself in enough environments. And even if you do, you might not have those opportunities. And both parties have to like invest in it. So, and it doesn't have to be ongoing, right? Like that conversation might be the last conversation you have with them for a year. But when you
I
see
hope.
them again and you talk to them again, whatever it happens to be, the
Yeah.
fact that you had that meaningful conversation, made that relevant and memorable connection will never be lost by either of you.
Yeah, and I think the best thing about that too is, I'm really bad at this because I've been so traveling back and so busy. Is like each of them individually like sent me a message afterwards and just talked about like how great it was to just kind of like talk, you know, and and I think that's I think people know this, that we obviously, and I'm just not saying me and you, but there's other people in the media as well, whether it be, Brian Spin, whether it be Sevon or anyone, Chase, Tommy or whatever. There's a lot of stuff we know. We just, it's just because we have these relationships with people, it's not our story to tell, or it's not our place to say those things. And we respect it. I think it's important to do that because that's how you build up trust in athletes and you build up this rapport with them. So I know there's a lot of clamoring out there. Sometimes media, and I'm not saying just us, but other media as well, can be very cryptic about things. More likely, like there's a lot of talk going on about like what the CrossFit Games season looks like, blah blah blah. Well, I mean, I think majority of media have an idea of what the CrossFit Games season looks like, but it's not our story to tell. That's CrossFit's responsibility to tell that. We may hint on it or say things about it or whatever, but part of the risk of saying something like that is, one, you lose that relationship with CrossFit or people that are involved in CrossFit, that we consider friends or whatnot. So it's just, there's a time and place. That's basically what I'm saying. And that's why I love going to these competitions, because these competitions give us the ability to kind of, it's a lot more relaxed atmosphere. We know people already there, or we get to know new people while we're there. And I think that's, unlike the games or the semifinals where there's so much pressure on not just athletes, but camps, coaches, even media, because everything's like a deadline, or you have to do everything perfectly, or it fucks up the rest of your season, whether it be as an athlete or as a media season. Uh, but that's why I love these competitions.
So yeah, it's I think as we've been doing this over the years, like just the roles that we take on at the competition varies. I mean, we'll go to Rogue in a couple weeks and I don't really have any responsibilities there. I'm literally just going to be hanging out, probably doing a lot of what you did this weekend. So,
Mhm.
and that's kind of exciting because
Yeah.
it's not that often that I go to a competition, and especially one with that dense of a roster of athletes and don't have specific responsibilities for the broadcast or for the competition or even for B.Friendly Fitness. Like, yeah, there are some things that I'll produce that weekend for us, but the media credentials that we get, we're not using them. Like we gave them to other people so that they could do their thing and capture stuff that we can, use and do with in the future. So anyway, I think the first thing that we wanted to come on today was we are having our show for Basque Championship or Basque Chapalqueta that'll be happening this weekend, and we'll be streaming that. But we had to push it back from today to tomorrow. And Patrick and I were talking, and we said maybe we should come on and do a show anyway, just kind of a catch-up show. We'll talk a little bit about our experience at Oslo, some other things that have been going on in the news of CrossFit. Uh, the Wodapalooza qualifiers have finished. More and more Dubai invites are going out. There's just some little updates. So Patrick asked me about that stuff, and we'll have some conversations later. But I didn't really want some of the stuff that I wrote on my post about Oslo Throwdown to just be lost to Instagram. On Instagram, it's really common that you'll see pictures or whatever, and you'll scroll through them real quick. You might not read the caption there, and even if you do, you can only write so much. And obviously, there'll be a lot more people that will view something like that in a 5-second domain than will listen to this. But the main, and I know that the live stream was behind a paywall. I think it varied depending on where you lived. I literally think in Norway it costs a kroner, which is 10 cents. You're still muted, by the way. And I think it might be like 10 euros or something like that if you live outside of Norway. And it's one of those things where if you pay it, you can watch it, but then there's a subscription for later on. But the interesting thing about the broadcast is it doesn't cost anything of the competition because of the model that they have set up. And the cost of, Roger pays obviously Magnus and I, but he's actually paying that out of some kind of deal he works with them. So it's a very different way to approach it than what's ever been done. And the second thing about the broadcast is we did not just stream the elite heats. There was an elite division we're going to talk about and talk about the results and some of the performances, partially because it was amazing, partially because some of those athletes are going to compete later this offseason in some individual competitions. But we streamed all the divisions. I mean, I think every division got some kind of touch point from us. And there was something that Joachim Rieg actually said to me last night or 2 nights ago before I was leaving, that an athlete in one of the lower divisions was on air. We had a kind of a close up of some of I think it was the toes to bar he was doing, or maybe it was pull-ups, butterfly pull-ups. And I was just talking about the fundamentals of gymnastics and the positions and the efficiency and how he was using his hip and core to extremity and whatever, just these things that you hear in an affiliate or a level 1 or whatever. And that clip was like captured by a bunch of his friends, sent around a bunch of people in their community. I'm not, integrated at that depth of the Norwegian CrossFit community, so I wouldn't have seen any of that. They're not all going to tag us or even maybe know who we are, but that they were talking about it. And that was like their friend got, who's just like this guy in the class at their gym that they do. He got some attention on the broadcast, and the fact that he was doing something efficiently, the fact that he was applying the mechanics well, and that it was producing a good result. Because in a 20-lane heat for a lower tier division, you're not going to be telling all 20 athletes stories. So you kind of gravitate towards the races and usually towards the front, or if there's something extreme or unusual happening. And so that was kind of cool just to hear about how, when you are able to produce a broadcast, especially a low cost one, for not just the elite, but for the community divisions, that it actually has an effect on the community. Because then people outside that are thinking about going there, they're like maybe saying, why are you even doing that anyway? They get to see that. Plus, imagine being an athlete in a scale division, man or woman, who's going to your competition maybe for the first time, and you could tell your parents or your friend or your coach or whomever, hey, our heat's going to be streamed on this. Direct sport is like a legitimate thing. Like people in Norway have a subscription to that anyway, at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. today. Like that's a pretty cool thing to be able to say, and it rarely happens anywhere else in this sport.
Oh yeah, 100%. And and I think that's what's cool thing about this event was like, there's 2 competition floors. Obviously, what you showed was what was happening on the main floor. There, you didn't see too much that was happening in that smaller floor, but that the small floor that was on the same side as the vendor village, you couldn't find a spot to watch from because it was packed. People were just circled around it for every division. Seriously, every division you couldn't find. There was no room at like the fence to watch the actual event. And I thought it was really cool that Roger did that, put it in Vendor Village, because what it did is like you couldn't. Every time you walked around Vendor Village, I know you only walked around there a few times, but when you did, it was pretty busy. People were at vendors. You hardly ever saw vendors sitting down twiddling their thumbs because they were out talking with somebody. And that's where I spent most of my time, was out in Vendor Village, maybe grabbing some ice cream here and there. But
hey, that protein ice cream was good. So one of the guys, one of the crew or volunteers or whatever had some coupons for it, and he was like, towards the end of day 2, he's like, you want some of the ice cream? And I had seen Roger eating it I think the day before, and I was like, yeah, I'll take some ice cream.
Yeah. So, but no, like you said, in terms of like just that community engagement, and it was just cool because every time those athletes came out on that main floor, and by the way, I forgot the name of the MC, but he did amazing.
Santino, God, that guy was good.
Santino, my gosh, this guy from 8 o'clock for 12 hours straight was just on the mic because obviously.
Well, actually, it's not
only
12
had
hours straight. It's not 12 hours straight. One of the
Yeah.
other things that Rogers this is critical. If you want to pull up Phil Heskett's post that he put up today, or maybe it's on prepared programming, it's probably on both. I'm going to start by saying this. I didn't hear of a single dispute between athlete and judge during an event on the field of play the entire weekend. And that's not an accident. It's not because the athletes don't care. It's not because the judges are doing a perfect job. It's because the first competition I went to that Phil and Roger were doing was last September in Sweden. I went to one this summer in Norway that Roger and I did together, the programming for. Phil didn't program for that one. So this is the next time. It's about 13 months later. And the evolution of the way that they work together, I already saw elements of this in the way Roger talked to me about programming this summer. But when he and Phil, who are doing 4 or 5 competitions a year together, are having these conversations regularly about how to program in a way that A, the story is really easy to tell, and B, reduces the stress on the judges. And Phil came at our show during the broadcast a couple of times, and especially during one of those teenage heats on Sunday. It's a really good listen if you had a chance to listen to it or have a chance to listen to it. And he talks about how he just had to he used to like to program really challenging, fun, cool workouts. And it's not that he's not doing that anymore, but he realized that he had to, I took that picture, by the way. He realized that he had to embed some other thoughts into the process that would create an experience that's enjoyable for as many people as possible who are there. And obviously, if the athletes aren't complaining with the judges, that's great. If the spectators can easily tell what's going on, that's great. If the judges don't have to do things that are outlandish in terms of making difficult calls, that's great. And then there's the equipment team. And so the reason why what you said about Santino triggered that thought for me is that if you watched the whole day, you would see that from 8 o'clock to 11 a.m., almost nothing changed on the floor. Just some weights, adding some weights or taking some weights off. They had multiple sets of dumbbells out there. If the heavy ones were done being used, they would take them off because they no longer needed them. And then they would build in like a 30-minute break. And the 30-minute break was for the judges primarily, and people like Santino and us to use the bathroom, get some food, just take a rest, get off our feet. And then during that time, that's when the crew or equipment team was doing the bulk of their work. They were making the big transition for the next workout that was going to happen on that stage of play for the next 3 hours. During that 3 hours, the equipment team didn't have that much to do. So they could use the bathroom, they could get water, they could do that stuff. So it's just this really clever way of making sure through the programming that the equipment team, the judges, the athletes, and the fans are all being served by what's being written and tested in fitness. It's really cool.
No, I mean, that just tells you the level of prepared programming that Phil does. I mean, like this, I think this is probably the most telling post that I've seen from Phil. Kind of, just like how much detail he puts in, not just the competition, but the events and the flow and everything. But yeah, just overall, just it was just great. I mean, I really have no complaints. I really don't. And to have 1,000 athletes,
1,300.
30. Okay, so 1,300 athletes, and you fit them all in there. And I don't know, maybe,
Hey, what's up, Roger?
no, go to bed.
Could he go to bed, or should I send them a link?
If you don't send them a link, we'll probably be on here longer. I got to go to bed.
If you send them a link, we're never going to bed.
Yeah, but I don't know if maybe and maybe you might know a little bit better. But do you think it's just showing under? Do you think that because there's less complaining or less people causing fuss, if that's a cultural thing, perhaps?
It's a culture that they've built up over time. And if you go to multiple of these competitions, you're going to see the same person in the call room. You're going to see the same people building the rig, moving equipment. You're going to see the same people doing judging. I mean, he has built a community of judges. And look, the competition ended Sunday. Today, they announced the dates and the location for next year. They opened up registration for athletes who are there this year. Hundreds of people have already signed up. When they open it up to the general community, it'll sell out in less than 48 hours, and it'll have hundreds of people on the waiting list. It's because he's established a culture at these competitions that it's not a question. Should I do this? What's it going to be like? Is it going to be another bad experience? Am I going to be in the corrals for almost every athlete? And I'm talking about Victor Lunddahl, Matilda Garnis, like big time Kristen Holta. They mentioned, without us even prompting them, one of the things that's great is there's a big enough warm-up area. They don't call us to our stall for the event 30 minutes before we have to start working out. Everything is timely. Everything is within consideration of who is going to be affected by with the timing of things. And timing, we talk about this often. If your competition runs on time, that's one check mark you can hit that makes a lot of people happy. But there's more to having good timing during a competition day or weekend than just making sure that 3, 2, 1, go happens at the exact minute you want it to. And we've heard it over the years so many times. Sitting in the corrals, it's become so exhaustive for people that it's actually something that top athletes started practicing. I'm going to warm up and then I'm going to do nothing for 30 minutes and then I'm going to go hit a heavy complex. Does that sound like a good idea to anybody?
No.
So you don't have to do that actually. You can actually, but here's the thing, consistency pays off. So Roger has found a group of 10 to 15 people that are like his people. And some of them are his dad and his uncle. Some of them are coaches at his gym who are chefs and own other businesses, but they are integrated into this competition scene. They come from Sweden. There's a judge there that she comes from Spain for all of his competitions. She like flies up, does 2 days of judging and flies back. Why does she do that? She doesn't have to do that. She's got a busy life, but she likes the community, and you don't have to like, oh, I wonder if I'm gonna have a good event experience there. Yeah, they do it 5 to 10 times a year. He's been programming competitions since 2016, and he's constantly assessing things. I mean, Phil, you saw he makes some notes. He acknowledged there were a couple of workouts I thought I could have done better on. I wrote those down. He also shared. He doesn't just say like, "Yep, that was a good workout." He writes why it was a good workout. Roger does this for all aspects of his competition. He leans on those people to give them feedback. You know, I'm sure sometime this week he's going to call me up and say, "Okay, tell me what was good. Tell me what was bad." Because he wants to know and he wants to do better.
Yeah. You mentioned today they did announce the dates for next year, 24, 26 October. So same weekend. And they already got the venue already secured. So that's a big
Same
thing when you
venue.
can't. Yep. Pardon?
Same venue, same
Yep.
weekend, announced a year
Same
ahead
weekend.
of time. And that then to me, like I think about there's a couple other competitions I know around the world that do this. Fittest of the Coast is one of them. They booked the same venue for 3 different weekends, but for 3 years in a row. And the last year, on the last day of competition, he handed me a check. He said, "We want to pay you a little more next year, and we're gonna. These are the competition dates." And it's like, yeah, that's great for me because I'm constantly scheduling a lot of things ahead of time. It's great for athletes. It's great for judges. Like all those judges that I mentioned. Why can they do these 5 to 10 competitions a year that he's talking about? Because he gives them a big runway, and he finds little things to add in for them. You know, they get to stay in the hotels, and the hotels have meals provided, and the meals are usually pretty good, like the breakfast, for example. And then once you've judged for him for X number of times, that's just part of it. He like increases your stuff. He increases your incentives as you have shown more and more loyalty to the team. And then it's not even a question. It's like the only reason any of those guys would miss it is if they absolutely can't be there. People have a life and want to be able to plan. And the sponsors, you know, we've run into this as a young company coming up where we'll like meet people, we'll talk to them, and they'll be like, "Yeah, but it's the end of the year." The sponsors plan their budget, I think, on a 12-month cycle. You would know better than that than I would. Well, if you tell them, hey, we have 5 competitions, they're going to be in April, July, September, October, and November, December, 6 competitions, whatever. Then you can say, okay, we can actually allocate resources towards the end of the year where much of your competitions are. It's great that we know that ahead of time when we're assessing our plans for next season or next year.
Yeah. I mean, he's investing in people that are investing in him. You know, and anything time is one of the most valuable resources in investing. Obviously, money is too, but can't have one without the other. Uh, yeah. So, but he also did already made an announcement that they now are adding team of 2 RX mix. So
Yep.
already even adding another division. So I mean so now he has a whole year to basically improve on something that was, in our mind, it looked like it was flawless. But we both know Roger, and Roger's constantly going, "Oh, there's something I could have made difference here, something I could have did different here." So now he gets to improve on that while adding other elements to it. Because I know one of the things that talking to a lot of vendors, they wanted to see how they can help more, how they can contribute more, how they can help draw more people in. Because there were a lot of people buying stuff, but they definitely could be more.
Yeah,
Those
and you don't
fans,
see that very often. Some of the like big time sponsors and vendors who've been involved in that community for a long time are coming to those competitions and they're having conversations with him and other people on his team about how they can add value and how it can create bigger opportunities for it's not just about adding more athletes. There's so many other ways, and it was cool to be able to sit in on some of those conversations. A couple of dinners we had, and just
yeah,
some side conversations.
we saw that Saturday night at the hamburger dinner. It's like, one of the guys that from one of the brands asked Rogers, like, hey, when can we meet? And he goes, looked at the schedule real quick. He said, 2 o'clock tomorrow. All the vendors, all the sponsors come up there. We're gonna meet for 30 minutes. And I'm like, boom. Like,
Yeah,
can you imagine
making it
someone
happen.
from can you imagine someone from CrossFit? I mean, if you went up to someone in CrossFit, it's like, hey, and asked them that, they're like, okay, let's schedule a meeting to plan a meeting 5 weeks from now. So, um, look, we have a town hall meeting next week with all partners and sponsors. So they're just going even further, and that's great. And that's the type of care that he's showing, because obviously the partners and sponsors are investing money into. They're investing their time and money into this
But
event.
he recognizes them as one of the 5 groups
Yeah,
of people that
cornerstone.
are critical to competition. Yeah.
Exactly. So what he's doing is he's reinvesting his time into them to try to make it a better experience. Because if you can make the spot, probably the people that are most probably the people that are probably that leave an event the least happy, besides someone who loses, that just bombed an athlete or something like that, are probably the sponsors, because they always probably wish they would have made more money. And the reality is, most sponsors don't make money, being a vendor. But it's not always about making money. It's about getting your face out there, being a part of that, building up those relationships, whether they're fans or people, because a lot of people are going to remember that, there's a lot of brands that were not Norwegian brands that made a trip there, from Italy or Spain or all around the world. They made a trip there. I mean, obviously Sweden, those countries from the high north, a lot of them are there. But when you have these countries, these brands out in Spain and Italy making that trek to Norway, that shows that they're willing to invest in that community and that and all that. But we can go
I
on
think
all day.
no,
Oh,
but I
go
think the last thing I want to say is I think about it similarly to affiliates. Like you hear a lot of people will say like it's really hard to become profitable as an affiliate, and you hear a lot of
ahead.
people say it's really hard to become profitable as a competition. Guess what? There are affiliates that are killing it and making a ton of money, and there are competitions that are profitable every time that they do it. The people who are saying that are they're doing something that Roger says he never wants to do. They're trying to reinvent the wheel. Like
Yeah,
you just need like go out there and go to one of Roger's competitions. Reach out to him and say, I'm a competition organizer. I'm struggling to make money. Can I come to one of your competitions? He's going to say yes, of course. He always does this. He goes to other competitions all the time. So he'd love to have you there to Norway or Sweden to hang out. And you're not going to, whatever it costs you to go there, it's going to be 10 times over worth it. You mentioned that they added the RX mixed division. This year, they added the elite mixed division. And it was kind of the showcase. I was actually like pretty impressed with the caliber of athletes. It was a fairly small field. There were, I think, 14 registered, 12 showed up, and then 1 or 2 ended up withdrawing. But the caliber of athletes that participated in this was really high. We talked about prior to it that there were, I don't know, 6 to 8 teams that we thought might be able to fight for a podium spot. And one of the teams that we had set off the bat was I said I thought they'd be on the podium. I didn't think it would be like we're going to crush everybody there. Was Matilda Garnis and Henrik Nagard, and
yeah.
both of them are going to be competing later this year as well. Both of them spent the last year in Miami. Matilda was obviously on the peak team at the games, and Henrik was there training with him throughout the year. He regularly filled in when Noah or Tola wasn't available, and he got integrated into a community there. They came on the show and talked about, I think, maybe some similar things to, or at least some stuff that you and Dan and Saf might have talked about as well, of just like using their the gifts that they have and have trained for physically to have life experiences. Henrik basically said, I was nervous and scared to go to Miami. I didn't know anybody there. I wasn't going there to be a part of the team the way that Matilda was. I didn't end up finding a team. But the things that have happened over this past year have just, they've got the they've got Vivid Performance now, and like all these doors open for them, and this opportunity of just like taking a risk and going outside of your comfort zone and doing something. Not everybody will be able to do that. Not everybody has to do that, but I know a lot of people that have had chances to do that, especially when they're young. I'll say under 30, and they've just made excuses not to. It's like that's the time. If you something comes along your way, I would say go for it. Try it out. As far as competitors go, they said they never had competed as a couple together. They did compete together a few years ago in Madrid, and they had some success there. But they were so impressive.
They were. Now, granted, I'm not making excuses for them or telling. I mean, they're obviously very fit and as a couple. But they prior to that, they had both. Did the basic qualifiers for the Norwegian championships to earn a spot to be on the Norway team for the IF3, and then they went to a training camp. Right, they literally flew in that Thursday night and
Friday
competed
night.
Friday night. They
They
flew in
landed
Friday
at
night.
they landed at 10 p.m. Friday night and
Yeah,
competed Saturday, Sunday. And they weren't the only ones.
yeah, there was quite a few actually, and but they're at a week long training camp, you know, preparing for the IF3, and they look great. I mean, Matilda is look great. I mean, we Henrik obviously we know him as a team athlete, but this is a guy that I thought it was a travesty that he wasn't on a team last year, and because the guy's very fit and he has the pedigree. But I think because he didn't have that name recognition, that a lot of teams, even though he was in the U.S., he had a couple teams that could have that he was trying to get together in Florida, but they just fell through for whatever reason. And then I tried to get him on a couple teams that I knew that I thought he would be really good at. That eventually, they went with other athletes. But I mean, if I don't know what their season looks like, if Matilda plans on going individual, I don't know if you asked them that, or if Henrik is going to go team or what. But if you're looking for a male, and I mean, Henrik would, I'd definitely reach out to him. But if they're staying in Oslo, more likely they'll find a team in Oslo, or they'll find one through the Krieger system. But yeah, they just look really. I mean, it worked. I mean, just like very rarely do you see like couples out there working. They'll be on a team together, but a two-person team is totally different because at least with a team of four, you've seen that some athletes will purposely not be if it's a male female partner, they will purposely not be with their partner. Um,
If you're
you
looking
know,
at this, what's up on the screen now, and you're confused by the scoring there, when it says AB, those were out of 75 points. That's why they're kind of
Mhm.
some weird numbers, and it's not like it was 100 points and then 71.25 for second in every event. But you just see the consistency here. They came out and had an event win right out the gate in a division we weren't sure about. They basically just continued to back up those performances. They actually, I think, didn't win again until the
the last event
Saturday.
or the fourth,
Was it the
fourth,
last in that?
no, the
Yeah,
second to
till
last.
till Sunday morning. Yeah, but they were always right in the mix. And as good as the division was overall, they were the front runners from the first event, and they never looked back. They held the lead the entire time, and basically the team in second was in second the entire time also. And it was like I said, it was pretty. It wasn't. It was one of the reasons it was tough to know is because teams of two is kind of rare. We see a lot of these athletes on teams of four or as
Three,
individuals.
yeah,
Um, yeah, maybe three at Wodapalooza. And then there's also you don't really know where everyone's at their training. Like we said, some of them came from a training camp, some competed at the games, some didn't. So there's like, which we're going to kind of talk about that later towards the end. But this was Alexander Ilibro and Maria Langfors. Um, did they start in second? Did they have second on the first event? Was it
third.
third on event one? And then really it was on. So events 2A and B happened, and they were okay. But then when they won both back to back, this was just incredible. Like Phil definitely did not expect anyone to win both of these events. It was thrusters and synchro chest bar, synchro thrusters and synchro chest bar, synchro thrusters, synchro bar muscle up. Just disgusting. with a little reset in between. They won the first one. We talked to them after. They said that they think winning it, giving a little extra rest helped, but it's like, come on, you gotta,
You
you
win
still have to
harder
go
to
out
get
there
that.
and do it. And we saw some people like really hitting the wall in the second one.
Or the
failing bar
floor.
muscle ups, not getting time capped. Yeah, well, Joachim was a little different, and we'll
We'll
give him
slow
some
down.
respect here in a second. But um, that was where they kind of just like made their stamp there. They came back the next day, second and first. It was just like they looked really good. And the interesting thing about these two teams was Henrik and Matilda are pretty similarly size in terms of height. Alex is pretty tall, Maria's pretty short, and they spoke about that. They have been training together and competing together for a couple of years, and so they know that like if we're squatting, for example, she's not only shorter, so it's less range of motion, she's also a little faster. So she has to intentionally slow down to match his cadence. And same thing with the gymnastics, where they just know. And we often talk about in any kind of competition that you go into an event or a workout with a plan, and sometimes plans don't go accordingly. And then you have to have a secondary plan. And if you can communicate with your partner without having to say very much or anything at all and just adapt into that second plan, then that's obviously a big advantage. So I think the experience for them, in addition to the fitness, was critical compared to some of the other teams that maybe are relatively similar fit, but didn't have the same experience together that they have.
The team in third place was relatively, I guess, an unknown team to me. Um, I mean, we know this was a team that we didn't get to see, or two of the members we didn't get to see compete. Well, was Sin on that? Was she on that team, that C23 team?
No, she was on one of the Krieger teams. I think
He was on one,
they
but
did it.
Axel was on the C23 team, who a lot of people thought very highly of. Had Ella Wonger, had some other experienced athletes on that team, and we thought they would be probably a top 10 team. But obviously they withdrew after the
Yeah.
tragedy. But they look great out there. I mean, obviously, finishing third, especially again, top five finishes, no event wins, but they were consistent outside of that second event, which was, you saw a lot of teams suffer in that second event, or that was a two-parter.
Yeah, and when I first spoke to them, they said that they came here to compete. They said that they came here and that they meant business. And I was like, I know that they're good, but I was like, there's some strong teams here. I didn't know if they could podium, so I was thinking like fourth, fifth would be a really good weekend for them. They were sort of in third throughout. They started with second. They had a very similar kind of showing to Libro and Langforce, just like slightly worse on it the next couple of events, but still hanging tough, more consistent than anybody else. Going in, there was some confusion on the leaderboard at the end of the competition, but not in reality. Like they still stood on the podium. They got the picture that everyone who was there knew what was going on. It was, I would say, the one time that I saw that maybe it was difficult to tell from a storytelling perspective, which is strange because it was a lunge to the finish, was that final, because it was so tight and you didn't have to go like one and then the other. Like I could lunge and my female partner could be right behind me, or she could be 10 meters behind me, and it didn't matter. The girl could go in front of the guy could go in front of the girl, or you could go next to each other at the same time. And the only thing that mattered was when the second person got across the line. So even as we were calling the stream, because they were going away from us, so it was hard to see down there. We called it. I wasn't sure like how many athletes in each team had crossed the line. So if you were watching early, you listen back, you would hear us say, "Oh, they got across. Oh, they got across." And, oh, actually, no. Here comes their partner, and it looks like this. So anyway, but they got the job done in the end. They were a team that stayed a little bit more closely together, while some of the others had either the guy or the girl that was struggling a bit. And they were awesome. I was really impressed. They're both pretty young. Axel's been doing it a long time. Sina's a little bit fresher, but I think both have a lot of potential going forward, especially on a team. And I think they might be looking for a team next year, if I remember correctly from speaking to them. So, reach out to them.
Yeah. And then, there was kind of a close race. I mean, they kind of separated themselves that final couple of events, but in fourth and fifth, only 3 points separating. Well, 3.75 was the Pastrana Part 1 team and Team T-Rex. So the two Swedish teams here.
Pastrana Part 1 was Lisa Anderson and Victor Longsved, and they were if not for the muscle ups and thrusters, where I think Lisa's grip just blew up on her, and we actually saw a few athletes in different divisions whose grip kind of blew up on them with the way that that Phil had programmed some of those. They may have ended up on the podium there, but that was a big hit for them. I think it was 11th. You see it there. And the second team there, Team T-Rex, Antonia Falk-Karolinski was coming off of like a couple weeks of being sick. She didn't really know where she'd be at, but her partner, Phil Lundquist, we spoke about, was a very unknown entity to us. He was at the 2022 Lowlands Throwdown semifinal, and I barely has done competitions the last years. Clearly, he's still been training. I hope he competes some more going forward because he's a great mover and his capacity seems to be like up to par. Like, we understand that the caliber of the rest of the teams that we're talking about right here is games level team athletes or better, individual level in some cases. So Philip Lundquist, again, he's 26. I think he's 26 also, like Axel is. And absolutely, he's a guy that I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him in a Dubai or we saw him in a Wodapalooza or we saw him on a team that ends up competing at the very high level in the next year or two.
Yeah. And then outside the top 5, you have Team Companeros. Was that Jorta?
That was from Denmark. So this was Daniel Jepsen and Freya. I forget. She got 3 names. The 3 names always click on the team names because the teammates. Click on the teammates there. Freya. Doyland Grayson. That's not a very easy name for me to remember, but I remember her first name, and she finished 60-something in the Open, 29th in Europe this past season. Their team missed the semifinals by 1 spot. And both are very good, but in particular, she's another athlete similar to Philip that I would love to see her throw her name into some kind of a Dubai Wodapalooza style qualifier, or maybe, a Turku Tumiopaiva type competition where you're going to get to go against a small number of games athlete and a small number of semifinal athletes and see what she can do. So Freya, if you're listening or if you know her, reach out if you're interested in doing some of those, a competition like that, because I think you got a ton of talent.
Yeah, and then in 7th, a team that a team we both know, Vesla and Morton, we know very well. They actually had an event win. They're fun to watch. Vesla's she's always smiling. They were the one. They were so happy when they won that part 2 of that brutal 2-part with the thrusters. They won the. What was that? The ring? Yeah, the ring muscle up portion of that. No, bar muscle up portion of that thruster workout.
No, this was the ski erg, and then the burpees and whatever else was with it workout.
Yeah.
So the burpees portion was like very easy to see the progression of it on the floor, and then in the back was the ski erg. And we actually spoke with Joachim because they had almost inverse points on this or results on this. Is that it was kind of advantageous in the scoring system to go for the big points because the scoring system didn't taper from 75 to 0. You see the team that got 11th out of 12, so got 45 points. So the opportunity to score points was by winning one of the events. And that's what Roger's like, it's the best skier I know, but he still had to do the handstand walk pirouettes to have a chance to do it there. And basically their strategy was, Morten, you go as fast as you can on the pirouettes and burpees things to get back to the ski erg, and Veslemoy, you ski as hard as you can for the small amount of time that you're on there, hopefully just to contribute something. But so they were kind of like needing to excel at their weaknesses in order to capitalize on him being world class at that one thing.
Yeah,
quote unquote weaknesses. These are games level teams athletes multiple times over. They're phenomenal at everything, but you understand.
Yeah, and then going into the 8th place is the kind of like, hey, it was kind of like it was the first team that registered, and it was the comeback story of some sort. It was like, how do you not, how do you not root for this team? You have a legend like Kristen Holta, who this is her first major competition. I mean, outside of her own gym, since she retired and had a child. She's 38 years old now, and she teamed up with her 32-year-old coach, her longtime coach,
who's not an elite athlete. He's not training to be in this field. The rest of them are basically training for this all the time, and he's training most of them. Yeah, they were 1st and 10th where Morton
Mhm.
and Vestermeyer were 11th and first. And I said it on the stream, like to do what Joachim did. And I mean, look, he trains a lot. He was top 500 in the Open this year worldwide. Like he's a beast. But to go out there and do these workouts against these athletes, it was a risk. And it's like you feel a little vulnerable. These are the people that all year round you're like holding to a certain standard. And Matilda said it when we talked to her. She's like, what he did on the last lunges with that sandbag, like
Mhm.
that's actually is already etched into my memory to the point where it will motivate me when I'm hurting at the end of a workout. Like if Joachim, my coach, was willing to do that, why would I not be willing to fight this hard?
Exactly.
This is something that I used to do when I was coaching soccer. Like I ran when I made the athletes do difficult things. Like I got really pissed at them one time because they were just being jackasses, and I made them do a half-mile burpee broad jumps. I did a half-mile burpee broad jumps,
Yeah.
and I said, clearly I haven't gotten the message across to you, so this is on me too. And I just started doing them, and they all just started following. I made them run a mile. I put a weight vest and ran a mile with them for time. Like,
Yeah.
they saw me working out when I made them do CrossFit workouts. Like, it's not like they're like, oh, Coach Friend's making us do empty barbell thrusters and burpees, pull-ups. Like, no, they've seen me do those things. So that's a pretty cool thing for a coach to do. Not every coach needs to do that, and not every coach can do that. But the fact that he did it this weekend made an immediate impact on some of his best athletes.
Exactly. I'm a true believer because this is how I've ran my military career. Is like, I'm not going to ask someone to do something that I haven't either done or willing to do myself. And for him to do something like that, it shows not the type of coach he is, but the type of leader he is. And yeah, and if you know him, that guy doesn't complain. Took everything with a grain of salt. He knew that a bunch of his athletes were going to rag on him, and he's fine with it but at the end of the day, he went and did it. And and you know what he said afterwards? Like he's like, next year I'm going to be more prepared. So
He
he's
did
already
say
planning.
that.
Yeah, he's planning on coming back next year and doing it. And Kristen said she'd love to have him back on that team. But no, it was just really cool to see him. And I mean, just watching him out there, he has to be one of the fittest coaches. The guy you might not know about, but this guy is probably one of the fittest coaches. I mean, another coach I put out there in terms of who would you say the fittest coach would be? Um,
I guess, I mean, there's so
I
many.
guess
It's
Taylor
hard to say,
Snow.
but I would say like somebody who's actually coaching an athlete or athletes that are regularly making it to the games. Taylor's not doing that. He is a programmer, but I don't think there's anyone that is following his programming that's make it to the games. So it's
Yeah,
like,
I would also, I mean, but yeah, I guess not yet. I think he's still building that way, but like you
Taylor
mentioned
is
Mark.
definitely. I mean, Taylor is definitely a coach.
Yeah,
He's
he's
the head
definitely a
coach of
coach.
CrossFit
And he,
Charlotte. He runs training program, and I think he's one of the 50 fittest guys on earth.
yeah,
Closer to 50 than 10, but he's up there.
yeah.
And yeah,
There's
you're not going to find many coaches that can also say that. So
yeah, and I mean Marconi's obviously doing the same thing. He's doing competitions and
he
hell,
got in shape for Down Under. My
he
goodness.
sure did. He got a podium out of it. So,
Yeah, that was awesome.
but yeah, there's not many coaches that will do that. There's some great coaches out there, but like I said, there's not many coaches that put themselves out there. And you know, before we wrap up talking about this, what I really also liked about this, because you do have a lot of team athletes competing in this, and I think this ends up becoming, especially if I'm an athlete and I'm looking to make a team, is I'm going back into this field and I'm pulling from this field. Um, you know, and you have a lot of Norwegian, Sweden, Denmark, teams in this field that are probably going to be looking for teammates. I mean, a lot of these, again, um, you know, we're going to see a lot of these names again on a team, and a lot of them will probably be paired with each other, and a lot of them might determine who's on their team based off of this event because they're going to look back and say, "Oh, I remember so and so on that lunge event," or "I remember them just moving very well on those thrusters, showed an engine," or something like. For someone like Henrik, if he stays in Oslo, he won't have no problem being on a top tier team. If I'm a top tier team, I'm gonna look for someone like Henrik. You know, and if
100%.
Matilda decides to go team, like she already did it once. I mean, we don't know exactly what her plans are for the season, but now this has given her some data where even though this is the first time she's teamed up with Henrik, now who knows? Maybe they might end up on a team. It's like, maybe we can make this work, a la like Chandler Smith and Jesse Smith.
It was a lot that happened. A lot of conversations happened. I'm pretty sure she said she's going to switch back to individual next year.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't hold me to
And
it 100%, but I feel pretty confident she said that.
yeah, I'm pretty confident too. But until we actually hear, like again, it's not really.
I think she said it on the broadcast.
She might have.
Not everyone could have seen the broadcast.
But bravo.
I did it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to go to the bottom. It was one of the things we talked about coming in with some of the international teams that had registered. There were 2 teams from the UK who registered. Harry Keenan and Helen Nutter were unable to make it. Dan and Sapphire had to withdraw. But I loved that there were some teams from outside of Scandinavia that had thrown their hat in the ring there. So if you are one of these, if you're good enough to be on a team like this and compete in this competition, or know somebody that are looking for a really well run, really fun programming, and really pretty competitive male, female 2-person team in the off season, the dates for next year are already set. And it would be awesome to have a few other countries represented there. Maybe you get a team from North America, maybe get a team from Spain or Italy or something like that, or from the Balkan region. That would be pretty cool.
There was a U.S. representative in the field, like the whole
in the
field.
Masters, baby.
Masters, yeah. Just missed out. Cool. Just missed out on the showdown. Again, another person I had a great conversation with. It's he's a part of the he's heavily involved with the Army Warrior Fitness team. He lived out in Norway when he served, and it was like so cool. Just like me and him, we had a lot of very similar paths and just talking and stuff like that. It was really cool. And you had him on the broadcast. Just a really cool dude. Before we leave, I just do want to highlight the RX individual male winner.
Really, the top 3. This was and even the 4th guy did very well, but Victor Lundal kind of took it down. He won every event until the final, and everybody, especially in Europe, they know who Victor Lundal is. He's had some world class. Yeah. He's had some world class open finishes, and he's a beast. Those 2 guys behind him are a little bit newer. Frederick Lindstrom is not, I don't think he's necessarily super young. He might be mid to late 20s, but we saw him in Finland earlier this year. And he had another solid performance here. You can see some of his competition history. Yeah. He's up and coming for sure in terms of his potential, and he's unusually strong relative to how he looks. And then Hugo Jansen, 18 years old now, I believe. He competed at the CrossFit Games as a teen. He competed in the Crown. He's competed at IF3s in Vancouver for the worlds out there for the age group divisions. And now he's here competing against the men in the RX division. This is the top elite division that was available this year. And he got on the podium, and he was basically battling Frederick for the 2nd spot right to the very end. The fact that he lunged those dumbbells the way he did at the end of the workout was like icing on the cake for me, that like this kid's got it. And he's going to be around for a while if he wants to. He reminds me of Guimai Eros, Dallin Pepper, these types of kids that were strong beyond their years when they're young, which is like not everybody's going to develop that way. I think he does some Olympic lifting with Eleiko. Shout out to your shirt, by the way. And he's a hockey player. Yeah. So he's a young talent coming up that I think if he wants to stick with it, which it seems like he does, he's also putting himself in competitive environments where he can learn. And that was probably for me, the other big thing that I saw from him from the last time I saw him compete in person until now is he seemed to mature as a competitor. There was a 3-round workout where he basically just like laid in the weeds, 4th, 5th, 6th for the first 2.5 rounds, and then pounced at the end, passed a bunch of players, ended up finishing 2nd to Victor. Middle to late in the competition, which is, that's also something you want to see. Are they fading or improving as the competition goes on? And he was getting better as the body presumably or should have gotten more tired.
Yeah. Would you? Who was the former teen athlete from Iceland that you were high on for like 3 or 4 years?
Haraldur Holgersen.
Yeah,
man, dude, he did so well at strength and depth that one year, and I was like, dude, that kid's. Honestly, it was similar to George Sterner. In 2018, the first podcast I ever did for CrossFit with Tommy, I said, that guy's going to be the games champion after Matt Fraser. And
put a pin on that. Put a pin on that name. We'll get that back to George Sterner later. But yeah, it's just like so. Whenever I hear you say like something about like a teen athlete and the comparison, I'm like, it's almost like the kiss of death from Brian, because I mean, Yeah,
Oh, no.
just
It's the opposite of
I
when you say something about them. Say something nice
yeah.
about Hugo.
Hugo is he's good. He's a good guy. Good kid.
Roger, I talked about the stream right at the beginning. Um, I mean, look, I think you have some different options when it comes to live streams. You know, there's like big time competition spends hundreds of thousands of dollars on live streams. It's not, I don't think it's sustainable. I don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's affordable for hardly anyone. You can also pay for, you know, smaller streams that are tens of thousands of dollars if you're going to use a truck and have whatever. And that might be some options for some people. And then, you know, like the lowest budget option that still is, I think, is decent quality is what we're doing, you know, which is going to be less than $10,000. And I'm pretty much going to come there on my own most of the time and do a point of view live stream from the competition floor. What you guys were able to do was, how I understand, was very affordable or didn't cost you hardly anything. And you're, you know, I don't exactly understand direct support. You might have to explain that to me better, how it actually works in Norway throughout the entire year. But some people I spoke to seem to be members of that anyway. They have a subscription for it anyway. Otherwise, you pay a really low amount to be able to watch it. And then, you know, just like any other subscription, it renews after a certain amount of time. And it depends if you re-up it or not or whatever. But it seems like this is the second time you guys did it. And I loved working with Magnus was a commentator on there with me, but Magnus was also the director, a different Magnus. I loved working with him and his team. They reminded me of the team that I worked with at Lowlands Throwdown in 2022 when Roger Stallma brought them in. That they're not CrossFitters. They do their thing and they rely on us for our thing. So we told them what we wanted. We told them how we wanted it to look, what we wanted it to do. They listened to us talk. We could give them subtle cues like, man, that was toes to put right there. We would love to see that next round because he's doing something that's going to give him an advantage against whatever. And they would get their guy on the floor over there for the next round. So they were just like so easy to work with. I think there's a ton of lessons in terms of the broadcast there that a lot of people could capitalize or lean into. It's the biggest web newspaper in Norway with the sport option. There you go.
You know, Roger, what I have to say about a pay-per-view, I know there's a lot of kickback for it, especially it seems like, I mean, if it's working for you and people aren't complaining about it and you're giving them a quality produced stream, which you guys were, then I'd say keep doing it. We get a lot of kickback in the States. It seems like a lot of people always complain when they're behind a paywall. But, you know, if you go to any newspaper in the US nowadays, everything's behind a paywall because people got to make money. And you know, you're providing a service, and sometimes a service costs money. If people aren't willing to pay that, then you know they have to go.
This is what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, they buy the rights. Yeah. So, but no, I mean, if it works for you, then keep doing it. I mean, and if people, as long as you're putting a quality. The thing is, if you're not putting a quality product out there and they complain about it, then something needs to be done. But until that's done, I mean, but if you're not having that issue, keep doing it. But yeah,
Dude,
overall, I'd like
you know, obviously I do a lot of broadcasts and I would say there's a small number of people who watch most of the broadcasts, what I do. And that, you know, of that kind of small group, and then there's even a smaller group in Norway, it costs 10 cents to view it. Yeah, that's what I thought. I think I said that at the start also. And then of the small group that watches all of them, there's even a smaller group that will actually reach out and communicate with me. Those people pretty much all reached out, the ones that normally do. And these are people that will tell me, hey, the live stream was really good, but the internet wasn't great on our end. Or the live stream was really good, but it was difficult to see the entire field of play because it was too wide or their sun was here. Or what, like they'll be critical. I got nothing but positive feedback about this broadcast. They really liked the conversations that we had with people when they came on the show. I thought that another thing is there's these roles in broadcast. You're the play-by-play, you're the color, you do this, you do that. Magnus and I just let it flow. Like he did all the intros because he's the main guy, the person that everyone's trying to, that are used to hearing there. And he can say all the names and everything that he needs to say so that people can understand them. But when it came to something that I'm really good at as a commentator is watching 5 people or 5 teams do something that is really quick and happening right at the end of the workout and relaying that information quickly and accurately. And he just let me do that. Usually both of those jobs will be play-by-play. But probably the best is take the 2 people that you have there and lean into their strengths and skill sets.
let's really
Look at
quickly
that.
since
The money that Roger earned, they used to rent an LED screen so they could put up that big screen that was right above us in the stadium for the people on site. So they're just reinvesting in the experience for the spectators.
Yeah, which was really cool. The LED screen had you could see the actual clock on there too, and the countdown was made from that as well, not just like some small road clock in a corner. I know for Santino that was really cool to have because he based everything off of that, the timing. We talked about the men. Let's just go ahead and talk about the women. Let's talk about um, someone Spin inadvertently gave a new nickname to, and I think it's cool. You should lean into it. Definitely lean into it. Stone Moon Nilsson, but it's Steen.
Stina Moen Nielsen, yeah. She won the competition this hey, what's up, brother? This guy, dude. If you're looking for an MC, I don't know what his full-time life and job is like, but man, he would really manage the floor well, appropriate amount
Yeah.
of energy throughout the whole day. You're the man, Santino. Stina was on a team at Norwegian Throwdown this past summer that I did, and
That's his first.
with Sebastian Skaldash, who was in the elite teams division pairs that we didn't get to his team, and that's where I really got to know her as an athlete. Well, the programming there, Roger and I did it. What?
Look at her past performances. Look at this.
She has been to the games on a team, but yes,
Yeah.
I'm really glad you pulled this up. Because when I did this over the summer, I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like this woman
Yeah.
is a stone moon."
Oh,
She's amazing. Now she has a couple quote unquote weaknesses, ring muscle ups, and like one rep max lifting or heavy lifting. She's relatively small, compared to some of the other women that would be like top competitors in the sport, or a little bit smaller. But she is a savage. Capacity out the roof, running out of the roof. I mean, she's just like really good at all the stuff you want to be good at, and she's kind of like Haley Adams. Like she's just not got the top end strength. She's pretty damn good at everything else. Just little lower level than that. Not top 10 at the games. She beat Andreas Solberg at Norwegian Functional Fitness Championship last year.
mhm.
Andreas Solberg podiumed at Dubai last year. Just to put it some things in
There's
perspective.
second, yeah, and has been to the games, as well, and is always a games contender. So, Stone Moon, you have a fan here, 31 years old from Norway, so she's been doing it for a while as well. But it seems like she's
And
getting back.
she's
I mean,
not. I don't think she's down in Oslo. I think she lives up towards Bergen
or
or
I'm
something
sorry,
like
Norway.
that.
I'm in Norway. Obviously, Norway's huge.
Oh no,
It's
you
actually
said. I think you said Norway, but a lot of the athletes are centralized down there to Oslo. And I think she's
yeah, or they're
Trondheim
close
or
enough.
Bergen.
Or they're close enough. Like I know Sahara, she lives like 30 minutes away from Oslo, so she do like 3 sessions a week at Oslo. But she does most of her gym at her actual home gym. But there's a lot of athletes like that. But this is an athlete I think who she's 31 years old, so she's closer more to making the games as a master than she is as an individual. But I can definitely see her being a masters type of athlete and at the games and doing really well when she hits 35 or becomes eligible for it because you know yeah, especially with the masters the competitions for masters are more CrossFit functional fitness um, centered as opposed to like strength. They might have one strength event or something like that, but most of it's mainly CrossFit. So, but yeah, great job by Stone. I was Stone Moon. I was able to watch her a couple times, and she was very impressive. Very impressive. I mean, she was
We should
winning
make a
some
shirt. We should make a Stone Moon shirt.
Full Moon shirt. Oh gosh, yes, yes. If I'm a sponsor, like I said, my mind's working already. Um, yeah, like I said, 25 points over Emily Moeller Olsen.
Yeah,
She
I don't
had
know
a
as much about Amelia, but she was like kind of solidly the next best athlete there. Did really well. Uh, I mean, Stina is phenomenal. She wins almost all these competitions she goes to. So it was a good battle between the two of them, but I think she only got Stina on the lifting and maybe one other event.
yeah, also 31 years old, so she's kind of on the older side. And then that takes us to the youngster of the group, Marie Ronstad. She's someone that I've been have my eye on, in terms of talent wise. Was able to get her an invite to the Crown, where I think she finished third there. Let me pull that up there. Where is it? The Crown final. Yeah, finished third. I believe she's 18 or 19. Has always just she's 20 years old. Sorry, 20 years old. So she missed like competing as a teen. Just because it's really hard to make it as a teen, especially the games, especially when they start cutting it out to 10 years, or 10 athletes qualifying. And then she had that. She was right in the middle of her peak teen years. COVID happened, so she lost a year with that. But did fairly well. She kept up. She had 5 top 5 finishes. Um, and yeah, I think the worst finish was an 8th.
Yeah, and you have been telling me about her. It's like we were saying, you're the opposite of the kiss of death for the youngsters. You have always had a good eye for up and coming talent, and I knew you were excited to see her there. And I was that 8th. We saw that 8th. We streamed that one, and I was like, "Ooh, is she kind of slipping here at the end?" But she rebounded nicely and maintained that podium spot. So I thought it was a great weekend for her.
Yeah, because she definitely had some competition coming from the two, I guess, two athletes from CrossFit Lillehammer were right on her tails, and so. But no, I think overall just really cool. It was really cool to see a lot of these athletes, and of course Roger being able to kind of showcase these athletes. Also, we talked about Santino. I mean, you talked about all these amazing judges. I want to give a shout out to my boy Victor Baker. I don't know if you probably know Victor, but Victor is someone I met maybe like 5 years ago when I was judging. But he's from Missouri. He flew out to Norway to judge, and
I did not know that. I didn't know he came from.
Yeah,
Cow,
so he
man,
kind
that's
of made
crazy.
this little thing for himself. Well, can't pull it up.
Little TikTok reel.
But I want to give Victor some love on that. I mean, like I said, this is something that you would back in the day during sanctioned days, you would see a lot of judges do this. They would fly off just to get some experience or use it as an excuse to go visit a place like Norway or Oslo. So that was really cool. I know he had great things to say about the competition, about how Roger ran it. So Roger, from this American Victor who flew all that way there to help out. Yeah. So yeah. So that was Oslo Throwdown. Great event. Oh, this is Santino. Just got all the swag. Just just great job all around. He did amazing out there. We brought him up a couple times. But I do want to show, not because I want to embarrass him, but I just really want to show this because it's just, I mean, it just shows you the level. No, I'm dead serious because they sold their soul. They sold their soul to win the first part of this event, and he got, well, they didn't win; they got second, right?
Yeah, because Maria and Alex won both.
Yeah, they won both, but then he gave it all, his all, and but I really want to show, just pay attention more to how Kristen's acting. Like Kristen's running, she's wanting all this, and he's like, oh.
Do you have it?
What's that?
Do you have it? Are you pulling it up?
Oh, I thought it was showing. My fault. I'll pull it up.
No,
right
it's
now.
not showing.
Oh my bad. All right, sure. Here we go. But yeah, this is the second part. So they just finished all these thrusters before. They had a minute
You
rest.
can't feel bad about showing it. He posted on his own Instagram.
Yeah. Like Chris.
This is what, when I was playing soccer, if this happens, my coach would have yelled, he's an English guy, he would have said, "Sniper!"
Yeah. He did get shot.
If you happen to be on site during the event on the final day before the showdowns, you will have seen myself challenge Roger in a workout that I should never really beat him in. We did 20 calories on the row again, 10 burpees over a line. And I may have skirted the rules on a couple of the burpees, but it came down to about half a step. And yes, Roger, you are the king. You won. You beat me. I have to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah, definitely should go back to the drawing board. But
Clip that, Roger. You play that over and over to help you fall asleep.
I do want to say, and I want to get your opinion, how good did Kristen Holta look?
Well, yeah, I mean, we mentioned at the start of this when we were talking about that elite division that several of the athletes in there are going to be competing later on in the year. She qualified for Dubai. I think there's a good chance she's going to compete there. Matilda's going to compete. I think Maria's competing. Henrik's going to compete somewhere this year, I think, as an individual. There's just like a bunch of these athletes. You'll see them again on the individual stage none of them have that. All of them combined don't have the credentials career-wise that Kristen Holte does. She's part of the reason why the fitness community in Norway is the way that it is. Like, quite frankly, Joachim is another part of that reason. But when you go to these countries around Europe, it's a little different than in the U.S. because in the U.S., I mean, yeah, you could say like, oh, Rich Froning, but there was a bunch of athletes that entered the scene because the sport entered the scene. And then slowly over time, an athlete became good enough in their part of the world or from their country to make an impact globally. And when you make an impact globally, the news back home, everything like that is going to take hold of it. And it's inevitable what's going to happen around that. Unless there's something crazy about your country that prevents it from happening, there's going to be that growth. So, if it's in South America and you look at a guy like Agustin Riquelme or Guy Maieros, like they have made it big enough that they are recognizable on the national fitness level there. Kristen is that in Norway. And the fact that she's still out here competing, she told us, she said, I was kind of nervous about the first event. And then I did it and I was like getting into it. And then I finished and I was like, oh yeah, I still love this. So that's pretty exciting to hear because we have seen, she asked me, what's the oldest athlete that's ever qualified for the CrossFit Games as an individual? So she's thinking.
Yeah, we'll have to go.
No, it was Andrea Pinheiro this year.
Yeah. Was there not anyone older in 2019?
Older than 41? I don't know. I don't know if I would even count that year.
I know, but I'm just saying, yeah, it was really cool to see. I did get a couple interviews from her. I'll probably put them up on Instagram, maybe put something together. Maybe we'll have some of those answers to some of those questions that people are asking. But that's pretty cool to see her do that. Wasn't the only competition going on in Europe actually this weekend. Another competition
another male-female elite competition was actually happening, which is wild because we were talking about how rare they are.
Yeah, and it was called the Rhine Gym Double Trouble. It's something that kind of popped up on my radar. I don't know if you knew about it prior, but it popped up on my radar last year when Lazar and Karen Freyova won this, and they beat some other really impressive teams. And this year had a equally probably very impressive lineup. And I think we briefly talked about it. I don't know if we briefly talked about it or maybe we talked about it personally.
No, we did it on a show last week. And I had said, I will take ownership, that I thought there was a team that was the favorites to win there. They finished fifth. Yes. And not to say, and the four teams that beat them, you see three of them here. They're all recognizable athletes in Europe. Some of them, people from North America will know. The winners are Taylor Howe and Reggie Fossa. Taylor we will get to see very shortly as an individual at Rogue. Reggie was in a qualifying position before a penalty. I would say in general, they're athletes that do really well online and haven't always lived up to the hype in person, but they definitely took care of business this weekend, and it was well earned. Like, this was a tough field.
Yeah, definitely. And it looked like these workouts are really tough too. They did have a feed on their YouTube channel, so I was able to watch some of it. And there's three divisions essentially. They had like a scaled, RX, and elite. So it was basically just three divisions of mixed pairs. What can you tell me about the second place team out of Serbia, right?
Croatia. So Augustin Velishnik was at the semifinals a couple years ago. You also may have seen him if you watch our stuff regularly at the Eurasia Throwdown. He didn't win that because Niko Majzoradze, I think, surprised everybody and won that and kind of put his name on our map at least. But Natalia Biborica was there and she did win. She's basically the fittest man and woman in Croatia. When I saw this field, I would have been surprised if you told me that they made the podium. They didn't only make the podium; they finished second, and I mean they're really fit. Augie will be at Belgrade Games for sure. I can check and see if Natalia is going to be there, but he was really close with that. Balkan community is like pretty tight knit. He was at Lazar's, he was at Lazar's funeral, and I'm looking forward to seeing him in a couple of weeks. This was a great result for him. Natalia is competing over there, and so is Julia, who's on the third place team there.
Yeah,
I think Braun also is competing. Yeah, they're both. Yeah, both the second and third place men and women from this are going to be competing at Belgrade Games.
Yeah. And Braun was, I think he finished second last year to Lazar and Karen. I forgot who his partner was last year. But this team, what was it called? Strong for Life. Um, and I brought it up when I was watching it. When I don't know if you got to see the clip of them doing the two-person warm, but as you can see, there's definitely a height difference between the two. But they were moving that thing so well, and so it says a lot. I mean, you were talking about early in terms of timing and communicating, but that was really impressive. That and she's very someone that I'm really interested. Uh, I think she's a former teen athlete out of Poland as well. Very similar to Gabby, who started off as a teen athlete out of Poland. So maybe there's something
Yeah,
there.
she was at the Pixel Pamplona Arena Games last year that we streamed, and she missed. I think she missed Dubai by one spot. So unless someone doesn't accept their invitation, she won't be there. But she's still really young. She's really talented. Works her ass off. So this is a good result. I mentioned the fourth place team. That was Lydia Bartow and Tobias Fox out of Germany,
Mhm.
and then Colin Bossard and Miriam von Rohr took fifth. I thought they would win.
Yeah.
But that's why you play the game.
Yeah, exactly. I will say I don't know if this is like is that €7 a piece or is that €7 for the team? Because they're each holding like a €7 like platinum.
7,000 euro.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Sorry, €7,000. So I mean, I don't know if that's per person.
Hmm.
So if that was 14,000 per team for the winner, if that's, I mean, from what we know, I'm thinking it's probably 7,000 per person because I don't think Lazar or Karen last year would have done it for anything. They would have split, you know, 7,000.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I mean, look, 37,000 for a team of two
Yeah, 2 day
to
comp.
win an event is a good payout in general. If that's
Yeah,
14,000, damn, like
yeah,
this thing has
that's
got
pretty
if
impressive.
that I mean, it had some good teams last year. It's got some good teams this year. It's on our radar now, so maybe we'll have a chance to work with them in the future. But we'll definitely keep our eyes over there. And Patrick was talking about their live stream. They are like many competitions in Europe are using the Circle 21 app, and
Mhm.
we're going to hopefully be able to work with them in a little bit at the Belgrade Games as well. But Circle 21, especially if you're a fan of CrossFit in Europe or functional fitness in Europe, is something that you should have the app downloaded for because there's a lot of leaderboards on there, and they're actually doing some innovative things in terms of broadcasting and scoring as well that hopefully we'll be able to share with you guys soon.
Oh, they did. Speaking of Circle 21, I don't know if I showed you that, but they're pretty well known for doing workshops and advertising and registering workshop. But that's the one that Lena and Sahara are doing. So they already started.
Awesome.
Advertising, and the registration's open for that workshop. But it's a pretty cool app. We're hoping to bring that awareness to some more people as well. But yeah, that's I believe that's the only place you can find the results is on the Circle 21 app. I tried looking online, couldn't find anything. But uh, so those were I mean, there were some other competitions, but those are two that kind of had our eye. Another competition I went on this weekend was an online competition, and we'll talk about here. Let me bring it up. But
By
the
the way,
individual,
I sent you something, a
yes,
screenshot of something that was sent
yes.
out in your WhatsApp that we will pull up in addition with this.
Let me pull that up. But go ahead and yeah, let me pull it up on my WhatsApp. But go ahead. But yeah, we
So
have
these are yeah,
inclusion.
these are unofficial as of now. Spin actually put it into a really digestible and easy to see format, but the Tier Wodapalooza online qualifiers for the individuals have spanned their 2 weeks. There's a lot of recognizable and good names in the top 20, but we always talk about the fact that the RX division at Wodapalooza is an elite division in some other places. And so you'll see if you scroll far enough down that all the way down to 60. So 40 spots will also go to the RX. And there's also some good names in there, including guys like Benoit Boulanger, who's going to be competing in Dubai. So just to speak to the breadth or the depth, really, of the talent that still is signing up for the qualifiers for Wodapalooza. But at the top, yeah, like you had at the top, there's a couple fun names up there, including my boy George. I reached out to him
Yes.
on Instagram, and he said, "I'm still fit. I'm just not that strong." And if you look at his event finishes, he took a hit on the lift in the workouts. If you go back to the ranks real quick, you'll see that he had, I think, three top 12 finishes, three top 14, 8, 14, 12, and then a 52 on the lift. And I mean, 315. plus whatever the tiebreaker was. There's still it's inverted with 1, still fine,
Mhm.
but he's got all the mechanics and mindset of Matt Fraser. I mean, I remember him having that similar size, like he or Austin Hatfield, if some other people would say, like, but it's that kind of build guy that's just like, it's scary to see what he could potentially do. And I didn't know if we'd ever see him compete again. When I asked him, he said he was going to throw his name back in there and see. And lo and behold, here he is.
That's pretty impressive. Yeah, we see Nick Matthew on there. Obviously perennial games athlete, two-time games athlete, has had, I guess some people say, kind of a rough off season. I mean, he's competed, but he hasn't had like what you would finish you would expect out of a two-time games athlete. He finished, I believe, second at Metcon Rush, which is still a great finish. We saw him personally at Reps Ahead 3 in Colorado, and then at Crash Crucible, I believe he finished seventh. But winning the Wodapalooza online qualifiers it's no easy joke. It's no easy feat. So for
No, when
him
we
to kind
talk about that RX division, he competed RX at Wodapalooza years ago.
yes,
Actually, I think it was 2017. I think Hiller might have been in that division actually that year. So that's the RX division at Wodapalooza is a proven grounds, and Nick Matthew. It's cool to see him win this after all the other stuff that he's done.
yeah.
There's no guarantee that all of these athletes will sign up and compete there, but there's a good international contingency. Enrico Zanoni, games athlete a couple years ago out of Italy, a couple of Brazilians, Pedro Martins and Kaiki Cerveni that we see there. Samuel Paquins often pops up. He does really well online. Katulis out of Greece is just a beast in general. Tom Kingdon from the UK, so Josh Gervais, man. Miko Liliork, he's been making the rounds on the qualifiers, and Lago Giraldes, 6'7". That is
6'7".
unbelievable.
Holy
Six
shit!
foot seven. Like, you look at Benoit Boulanger and say, why didn't he make it? Well, maybe it was really kind of an online thing that's tailored to these smaller guys. Nope. You got Lago Giraldes there. You got no excuse.
Yeah. Shout out to my
He's the
boy.
guy. He's the guy. If you remember at Wodapalooza, they put him in the outside lane and they raise the rings because they're like, "What? Yeah, we have to do something for you. This is insane."
Shout out to my boy Max Krieg, finishing sixth here. Out of the Army Warrior Fitness team. Also John Wood, who we'll see, later on in November at the.
Well, he's
Reps
actually
Ahead.
he's competing at Rogue, same weekend as Rogue, but at Desert City, in the
Yeah.
same division as Nikita Katzman, my friend from
Oh,
Chicago that I used to coach and
yeah,
train with.
yeah.
Yeah, he's worked his way up to an elite qualifier there, and he's going to have his hands full with some guys like John Wood and Drake Lewis. But
Yeah.
we will see John at Reps Ahead 5 in that tournament style, and pretty excited to see him in it. Actually, he's a scary draw. Like
Him and Zoe both are. Him and Zoe both are. I really think Zoe, more likely she'll go against Ariel, but Ariel better bring it. I mean, there's no guarantees in Reps Ahead. We've seen that.
Ooh, I've seen the draw actually.
Yeah. Trayvon,
It's probably on the website.
I think obviously I've been a big Trayvon fan for a couple of years now. So I mean, he just missed out on Rogue. I think he got a penalty. I think dropped down to like seventh or eighth. But it'll be good to see him competing with the elites here. On the women's side, some interesting names as well. And like I said, it's unofficial right now. But the team freshly graduated from the team division, Lucy
Dude,
McGonigal.
this is just a young top
Yeah.
5.
Yes.
Before.
I mean, you can go top 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
Caitlin at eighth probably throws off because I believe she's 31, 32. But everyone else on there, I mean, you have two people on the podium at the team games that are going to be competing in elite. And Reese Littlewood, who won the team division, beating Lucy McGonigal, who had won, I believe 3 straight team titles, or at least 2. I know she won last year as a 16-year-old, and I believe she won her final year as a 15. I don't know if she won. I don't think she won as a 14-year-old in the 14 to 15, but
yeah,
it's
we
impressive.
got Annika posted about this and said it was like the first qualifier she's done that like basically went smoothly. So if she competes there, we'll see her in Dubai and Wodapalooza. Erica Folo, made her mark at the semifinal this year in Tennessee. Jennifer Muir who everyone in the UK wishes was competing at Rogue, but she looks like she will be competing at Wodapalooza. Aline
Mhm.
Verts, she's actually competing at I think the Canada Throwdown prior to this, so see her a couple times this offseason. Lydia Fish, another good performance at Crash this year. Zoe Warren, who you mentioned, Nina Vragovic, who's been training at Mayhem. I mean, it's a pretty good field. Elizabeth Wishart,
Elizabeth.
Emily
Yep.
Lundberg, Lucy
Yeah.
Campbell. Damn,
Yeah.
bro. Yeah, this is good.
Yeah, that's a real. I mean, our girl Nicole just right
She
outside.
must have no, she must have got a penalty. She was inside the top 20
Oh,
this morning. So there's definitely still, like we said, some shifts going on. But if you look
yes, it
outside the
was.
top 20, like here, Sanders, Andrazik, whoever was the fourth one down, and Mikulishin.
Yeah,
Mikulishin
Sydney
has
dropped
won the
out.
RS division before. So
Nina
keep a
moved
look
up.
on keep
Yeah,
an eye on the leaderboard, but either way, there's going to be a good contingency of athletes that qualify for the elite division through the qualifier, and of course, there's if you qualify to the games the previous year, you get an invite.
yeah,
You and I have spoken to many athletes. We'll let Wodapalooza announce those things on their own that are planning to compete there as well. So it's going to,
yeah.
as always, it's Wodapalooza. It's going to be a great field, and this might actually be a good time to talk about. Um, that thing you were asking me about last night about the worldwide rankings.
Where did that bring you? Oh, yeah, I do remember. Duh. Sorry, you had me confused. I have confused something else. I was looking at some of these other names like Trista Smith, who finished on the podium in the RX. Not a great performance, but there was a name on here. I'm really interested to see where she's at. She actually won the RX division last year, and she I don't think she made it even to RX division this year after winning the RX division. I believe it was yeah, Chevrolet won the RX division last year, and so far she's outside of the RX division qualifying spot.
All right, she did great at Rogue also. I mean at Crash also.
Yeah, so but yeah, so right now she's sitting in the I guess the not scaled but intermediate division right now. But yeah, so what we've been through all these competitions worldwide. We used to use a lot of this stuff for research, and we would come out. You would always come out with your own worldwide rankings, whether it be 200 or whatever. I mean, are you planning on doing that again this year?
I think it's something I've been doing since 2014, probably something that I've been making public since 2018 or 19, and I did extrapolate out to 200 last fall. Uh, I will do it again. I don't think I'll go out to 200. We've talked about that. You had mentioned that some they were talking about CrossFit's worldwide rankings not being updated, I think on Scott's show, and that John
Yeah.
Young was in the comments said something about the mountain being kind of the best appropriation of that. And I can't really agree. You just like you look at that and you see wherever he has Adler on there, and it's just like the guy didn't. The last three major, four major competitions he's done. He's like, there's no reason that you shouldn't consider him to be, if not the fittest guy on earth, one of the top three. Um, but we didn't get to see him at the games this year, and we didn't get to see a host of other relevant athletes on the male and women's female side of the games. I mentioned to you last night that Mason Startup had put a video out about how to assess James Sprague's performance, where he talks about this, and then
Did you watch
additionally
it?
I watched it.
What'd you think?
That's what I'm about to tell you.
Oh,
I thought it
I'm
was
sorry.
I thought it was pretty well done. He talks about how a bunch of other athletes that did compete, and he clips I think something from Justin Medeiros talking about it, didn't really weren't competing with the same kind of focus, attention, and discipline that they would usually compete with. And all of that to say is that there are some things, if you're able to set aside the emotions of what happened at the games this year and just look at the performances, there are a couple things you could learn from it. But overall, relative to a normal CrossFit Games, it's sort of meaningless. I'm not saying it's meaningless. I'm saying it's meaningless compared to most years at the CrossFit Games. When we go to the CrossFit Games in almost every year, the thing that you and I say is, this is the one. Like this is the one that, yeah, there's going to be some little injuries or whatever, but everyone is peaking for this. When we were talking about this competition this last weekend, not everyone's peaking for that. We know that. They have other things going on. Same thing with Rogue. Like, yes, everyone wants to win it. Yes, the prize purse is massive, but there's a lot of other competitions going on. People are doing these qualifiers. People are doing other off-season commitments, traveling. I look at someone like Pat Vellner. 2 weeks prior, he's over there at the competition. But you know that there's going to be people strolling up a week, 3 days, 2 days. We've talked to some athletes that are flying out the Monday or Tuesday before, and it's very different. Most people wouldn't choose to do that for the CrossFit Games, but they might in an off season. So personally, I'm kind of just waiting. Uh, I wasn't really that motivated to even watch the end of the CrossFit Games. I couldn't really, like I said, invest in evaluating athletes' performances as well as I usually would. But I think that at Rogue, we're going to learn a lot. I think at Dubai, we're going to learn a lot about a different group of athletes. And then also at Wodapalooza, through those three competitions alone, not to mention all the other ones that we're watching, paying attention to, and working at this off season. I think we'll have more relevant information about the top athletes in the sport. We'll just say the top 100 male and female athletes in the sport than we do right now.
Yeah.
So my plan is basically to just let the off season ride, and then after maybe after Dubai, when I have some time off, I might put together a list that I think is more indicative of that, and then after Wodapalooza, kind of refine it and put it out there. And I think at that time, it could be actually a fun conversation to have. But for now, I feel like it wouldn't look that much different than it did before the games because I didn't learn that much at the games.
Yeah. By the way, I did want to say I was able to watch Mason's video, and I thought it was really well like produced and put together. Brought up a lot of good, factual stuff, some very good, assumptions, and they're really cool. I mean, if you haven't seen it yet, I believe it's up to almost up to 20,000 views right here. So
Yeah, the video is absolutely crushing it.
he did a really good job with it. Really great job producing and editing that. So yeah, give it a watch. It's only 9 minutes long. So definitely, he's got other good stuff on there too. He doesn't put out much, but when he does, he puts out some good quality stuff. So
He ends up really leaning heavily on a stat about one single workout
yeah,
being a correlate to the overall results of the games. That's I think if I was going to be critical of it, I would say that he may lean a little bit too heavily into that one thing. There's a lot of other points that he makes, but he spends a lot of kind of time there, and it is quite dramatic what he ends up discovering. But
yeah,
overall, I thought a lot of the context he provided prior to getting to this year's CrossFit Games was relevant. The graphics were good. He had some really cool footage. I'm not sure where he pulled all of it from.
yeah.
Yeah, credit to Mason. I thought it was, and he didn't rush it. Like he
Yep.
waited until he thought that he had something valuable to put out there, meaningful and well constructed. And I think that showed in the end product.
It definitely did. So good job, Mason. If you haven't watched it again, it's only a less than a 10-minute watch, and it keeps you actively engaged, and it makes you question some of the things that you would consider otherwise. Because obviously, Killer put out a video regarding soon after games whether he thought James was the fittest, and there's been a lot of talk with that. I mean, it sucks because we know James personally. You have a really great relationship with James, and he's become this very polarizing figure for no reason. I mean, other than people just, nothing that he could have control under. He just went out and competed as an athlete. And I mean, we could talk about this another time. I would love to have this conversation with James, maybe at a later time. But yeah, I just thought it was a good video and brings up some valid points, whether you agree or disagree with it.
Yeah, and in the meantime, just wish him well. I mean, obviously he's kind of been sick, really sick, I guess. Man,
Yeah,
hope for the best there. Yeah, this is what I wanted to pull off since we were talking about Wodapalooza. Just got this email while we were on the podcast actually, and it's at the very bottom. Maybe it's cut off here. It's only until October 30th. So there's limited time only, 10% off for to get one ticket to Wodapalooza. There's a code there. They just recently did this little publicity thing for the deal with South Beach and the city of Miami.
a
So
new logo, new logo.
so there it is, and it's I always say, if you've never been, it's worth it to go one time. Well, this is the first time it's at a new location, so if it's been a few years since you've gone, it'd kind of be like going to year number one, only with 13 years of experience under their belt. So I'm pretty excited to see what they pull off. The team clearly seems excited. Everybody who's kind of an integral part of the Tier Wodapalooza Miami family has been reposting this, and it feels like kind of a renewed energy to really make this new location a successful one. So if you want to go, you got a limited time window to save a little money.
Yeah.
Plus, the hotels are
Exactly.
probably cheaper to book now.
Probably. And you know what great momentum off of I thought a highly successful SoCal. So you're going from beach to beach. So they already got kind of like the beta testing out of the way. And you know, I would imagine Miami being bigger than SoCal just because it's a more well-established event. So if that's the case, I'm really looking forward to it, and it should be a fun time. And plus, it's gonna be so cold everywhere else in the country. Why not go to Miami and get some sun while you're out? So, uh, but I think that's pretty much it. I don't think there's really nothing of note to come out of Rogue yet. There are still tickets available for those. I did find out they are sold out of tickets. All they have are they're sold out of their 3-day passes. All they have are single passes. So if it seemed like there's a real huge push the last couple weeks, so that's really good to hear. There are some VIP experiences available too on the tier ticket. Uh, I think Ticketmaster. I think they sell it through Ticketmaster, but yeah. So we got that coming up next week. You got Boss Championships this weekend. We're going to do a full preview on that tomorrow with our special guest Zabi. So
He just texted me. He
yeah,
would like to do it at 8 o'clock, same time as today, which is 1 hour later than we currently have it scheduled for.
all right, strange. Yeah. Once again, one final thing. Again, I always feel like I have a final thing. They have been releasing the workouts for the Turkey Challenge. So the MBS Turkey Challenge, which runs concurrently with the Reps Ahead in Denver, Colorado. So if you're competing at that, obviously registration is still open for those for the MBS Turkey Challenge. Or so, yeah. And finally, shout out to HCR CBD. We do have some cool stuff planned. Talk to Dimitri. We're going to do some giveaways for HCR CBD. So we're working on some possible things. We're talking gummies, maybe some relief sticks to some of our viewers and our fans. So keep an eye out for that. Strike movement. I mean, I already told you. I already bought my shoes. Got me the Panterra.
Dude, they just keep announcing amazing
Did you see the
colorways.
white ones? Those white
Yeah,
ones?
did you see what was the one they just put out today?
Oh, they put one out today? Oh, let me pull it up. Damage strike.
It's like Shadow Pack. Oh no, they
Shadow
put out
Pack.
2 today. Shadow Pack Part 1, Neon Shadow. Shadow Pack Part 2, Blue Shadow.
Hmm. Let me see if I can find this. Where's it at? Oh, I lost it. Is it here? Share. Which one are they? Oh, is this a Shadow Pack here?
The top 2. This is the Phantom Black. I think they posted 4 in the last. Posted all black and all white, and then these shadow packs like the neon, the blue and neon. I think.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's see what this other one. This is part 1. Okay, here's the Neon Shadow. I like.
And I can't remember them ever announcing a new one that I didn't like.
Yeah, and these are Phantom Blackouts. I didn't see those, but these are so good. Yeah. It's a good thing they're our sponsor. But yeah.
You'd be
But
broke
thanks,
otherwise.
and they're dropping a bunch of new
Yes.
stuff. So
We will do some shows for Rogue. Patrick and I have already done. We've submitted our own rankings to each other for Rogue. He's working on some graphics. He's going to post that. What we would like is for you guys to interact with that. Tell us that my picks are better than Patrick's, of course, or the other way around, whatever you think. And maybe identify. There's 40 athletes competing there. We'll mention all of them, but we'll kind of focus on where the most interest is from you guys to kind of narrow the conversation. Next week, after we finish up at Basque Chapelqueta, then we'll do It's not, but we can call it that. I'm trying to lean into the Basque culture a little
I
bit
know you
before I
should,
get
and you
there.
should. You should. Tell me to shut up. Yeah.
Um, I'll tell you the chapelqueta.
I don't even know what that means.
I think it's a territory. It's the region where it's being held. But I'll be in between the end of that competition and the start of Rogue. I'll be in Madrid for a few days with Rodri, working on some stuff for the broadcast, getting some training on, and also just visiting the city a little bit, because usually when I go there, it's just competition related. And I've heard it's a pretty cool city from a bunch of people. And we're going to do some shows that weekend leading into Rogue. So we'll do at least 2 shows. Exactly how they look, we haven't really nailed it down yet, but Monday, Tuesday, Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in the evenings in
we
Europe is when we'll probably do them.
we got some guests lined up already, so some pretty good guests. So we just need to iron those out, or at least pin those down.
So
But
yes, we will. Of course, we'll do some
probably
shows for Rogue.
yeah. So probably tomorrow. Tomorrow maybe release the picks, top 20.
Put them out there,
Yeah.
and then I would, love to see what you guys think about them, what you love, what you hate.
Yeah.
We can take a little hate. Turns out we're okay with it.
Oh,
Haters gonna hate.
I thrive off hate. I thrive off hate. I'm just kidding. But no, we'll post that up tomorrow. We got a couple other things that just keep an eye out. We got some other things coming out this week as well. So, but yeah, thanks for joining us. Thanks. I know there's quite a decent crowd from Norway that tuned in there too, including Roger. Appreciate that, Roger. Appreciate you hosting us, man. I mean, it was so much fun. I'm already looking forward to next year. I mean, um, yeah, I'm looking forward to my next trip to Norway as well. So there's a couple other things we might be doing in Norway. Like I said, that's part of what I was doing there, was making connections and talking to people. It was really cool. Thanks to everyone that was a part of Norwegian Throwdown, or sorry, Oslo Throwdowns, for kind of welcoming me in. I had some great conversations Saturday night and all day Sunday. So just good times. But appreciate everyone that tuned in today. Appreciate all the support from our sponsors, and most importantly, everyone that tunes in and watches us and supports us through just their kind words. So with that being said, be friendly, our friends.